Hi there, it's Sarah with Ampersand Unique Gifts and Home Decor, and I'm out in the shop working on a quick project today, and I just thought I would bring you along with me. So let me tell you a story. Those of you that have been following me for a little while or have just checked out some of my prior videos may already know that I am a clerk and part-time cashier for Coke Auction Services here in Milltown, Indiana. I get a lot of opportunities to get some really cool stuff, some extremely good bargains, and some free stuff. So what I have today is a table leg, and the person that was buying the table that night, it was an antique old table. It was sitting there, it was kind of put together, the legs were leaning against it, and the gentleman, it was a frequent customer, he bought it. And I had talked about what a great table it was, and it was an old antique table, and you could tell. And so the auction's over, and I'm kind of wandering around talking to everybody, and he comes and he gets me, and he said he went to get it and that the tabletop completely fell apart. It was in several pieces. It was put together from multiple pieces, and it just completely fell apart, and he was going to put it in the dumpster, and he wanted to know if I wanted it. Well, of course I said yes. So I did not end up bringing the tabletop back. I probably should have, but it was quite a long time ago when I first started working there, and I really wasn't sure, and I've already got kind of a hoard of wood. But I was not going to let these table legs go. I wanted these table legs. So today I am working on a project. They've been in my shop for a while, and I'm working on a project to make a wreath hanger, a tabletop wreath hanger, out of just a scrap piece of wood, the table leg, and then somewhere here, I just have a little hook, just a single hook that I will put on it, and that's it. So I'm going to cut the piece of wood to the right size for the base to make a sturdy enough base. Then I'm going to screw the table leg to it. I'm going to paint the whole thing. I'm going to do it with a whitewash, put the hook on it, and that is it. So come along with me, and I'll see you on the flip side. So like I said, I wanted to have a big sturdy base, so I found this leftover piece from a 1x12 so that I could get a good size square cut out that would give this a good stable base and not tip over. So I just sanded the edges of it. I didn't want it to be too fancy, but I also didn't want it to look like I had just cut off a regular board, so that it would kind of match the age distressed look to go with my table leg. I'm going to paint everything white, but I wanted to make sure when I distressed it back that the base was the same color as the table leg. So using the DIY Dark and Decrepit mixed with water, about a 50-50% mixture, I'm going to paint the top and the sides. Just side note, that was not really bottled water, but we don't have water in the shop, so I just carry a couple of those big bottles out there with tap water. So I gave this a couple coats just to darken it up, and then I moved on to filling the hole in the table leg where the bolt would have gone that actually held it to the table. This Durham Rock Hard Water Putty is absolutely wonderful. It's just a powder, and you mix up as much as you need, and you can mix it as runny or as thick as you need it depending on what you're going to do. So again, using my tap water, and just side note, it takes a very little bit of water even to make the runniest mixture. I made it a little bit runny because I'm going to be pouring it in that hole, and I want to make sure that it goes down in there and completely fills it, so that later it doesn't settle and end up leaving a dip. So I pour it in there, and then I kind of beat it on the table so that it settles down in there. And I just keep doing that until it quits settling and it's even with the top. And then I set it aside to dry. It actually dries pretty quickly. If there's some spots, I might leave it overnight, but for the most part, in an hour, I'm ready to sand it. So using a ruler and my square, I find the center of my base. I put a pilot hole in there for my screw, and then I also take a little bit larger drill bit and make a countersink top so that I don't have to worry about the head of my screw coming through the bottom. And even though I'm going to put felt on there, I just want to make sure that there's no risk that anything that I create is going to scratch a customer's table, buffet, dresser, whatever they're going to set this on. So I used Gorilla Glue wood glue and about a 2 or bigger screw. It was a pretty good sized screw. Screw that up in there and then let that dry. Then using the DIY White Swan, I paint everything with 2 coats of white paint. And I don't paint the bottom of it just because I'm going to put that felt on there. But I did discover not only did I have some bleed through, I also wasn't very happy with how smooth I had sanded where I put that putty. So I went back in and sanded it smooth again. But to avoid any bleed through there, I'm going to use shellac. And then I'm also going to paint the shellac up at the top where that bleed through spot was, where it was showing the dark coming through my white paint. Sometimes it takes a couple coats of the shellac or a couple coats of the paint. I was lucky here. I just gave it 1 coat of shellac, and it just took 1 coat of my White Swan to go back over that. And you could no longer, voila, the bleed through was gone. So I wanted to distress the base. I'm just going to use that 240 sanding disc on an old sanding block and give that base a good distressing around the edges where you can see that dark coming through. But I didn't want to create any flat spots or anything on my table leg, so I did use a wipe. I can't remember what these are called, but they're giant shop wipes, and I'm just rubbing it there. That's one of the great things about the DIY. It's a clay-based paint that distresses very easily if it's before it has cured or been sealed. So I'm using my yardstick here just to identify the flat spot on the table leg where it would be best to hook this. I'm not actually measuring. I just wanted to make sure that my hook was going to hang the straightest with the base, so that whatever you hang on there is going to hang straight down. It's not going to want to poke out or hang to one side, or even if it was something on a string, want to hang behind it. So just using the longer screws that came with the hook. I think they're a little bit over 1 inch long. I drew some pilot holes again, just because this is an old table leg. I want to make sure I don't split anything. So I did that, and then I screwed that on there. It would have made sense to do this after I do this next part, but I was so excited to get that on there and move along that I didn't think that through. So I did leave it on there while I did the sealing of the entire piece, but it's okay. It didn't do anything. I just wiped it off if I got any on there. So speaking of that, here's what I'm doing. I am using the Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water. Again, just my tap water. It's about a 50-50 mixture again. And I covered the entire thing. I did this process twice. I covered the entire thing, making sure to get it in any of those grooves. This is going to help to seal that overall chalk paint, as well as to give it that antique look, because it has that brown wax that goes down in all those grooves. So here you can see the finished product. It's paired with a candlestick or display riser that I made out of an old lamp. And if you do not already follow me, then please consider subscribing to my channel, clicking that notification bell.